Hello there! I'm Scotty. You're not. Welcome back to the Smallville Retrospective. We're on Season 2, Episode 7. Lineage. This was an episode that I used to roll my eyes at because it's just like, okay, it's this one. But, it's like the last one. Much like, no, Nocturne. Excuse me, not the last one. The last one was, much like Nocturne, I actually liked it this time around, this rewatch. So a woman named Rachel Dunleavy has shown up in Smallville claiming that Clark is her illegitimate son. Yeah. So the one thing that I always roll my eyes at is that they would ever think that the people at home watching this would ever believe this woman. Obviously, if you're a Superman fan, you know Superman's lore, you know this can't be it. She's not Laura, She is not. So, who is she? Well, it actually connects to more of an ongoing story that goes on within this season. Because she shows up in Lex's office and tells him that Lionel Luthor, that not only is Clark her son, but Lionel Luthor is the father. And I think that the writers of this, whoever shot this, were trying to plant that seed in your head that maybe she could be Clark's mom, because when this starts, she shows up at the Kent house after everyone's left. Although I love how Clark's like taking bread and turning into toast with his laser vision. That's pretty cool. But everyone leaves and she shows up. She's just there. She's already there. And she goes in the house. The very next scene, Clark is walking down the hallway in school, and she's there. And she's there already. So I think that's leads you to believe, oh, what if this woman is, But there's no way she could be a Kryptonian. You ever seen an old Kryptonian? Except for Dax-Er later on in Season 7 with the blue kryptonite? No. So, yeah. Meanwhile, in the B-plot, Lana is determined to find out who this guy in the picture is and if he is her father. We find out his name is Henry Small, and this is what I was talking about. He is Henry Small of the Smallville Smalls, the founders of the town. How does nobody already know who he is when they saw that picture? Oh, hey, that's Henry Small. His family founded this town. Wouldn't they know what the family of the founder looks like? Just saying. And this is where we have a nod to Superman's past in media, because this man, Henry Small, was played by Patrick Cassidy, who I was shocked to find out played Leslie Luckabee on Lois and Clark: New Adventures of Superman. Leslie Luckabee was it's very interesting that they chose to introduce this character with this actor, and this episode has to do with Lineage, when his appearance in an arc on Lois and Clark had him be the illegitimate son of Lex Luthor, who was quite older than the other actors in that show. He's played by John Shea, who was in his 40s at the time. Everybody else was in their late 20s, early 30s. So it makes sense. Patrick Cassidy was probably in his late 20s at that point. Although he wasn't the illegitimate son, spoiler alert. It was this former guy that was working with him. But, yeah. And of course, Leslie Luckabee, LL Lex Luthor. And that's how, if I remember correctly, that's how they figure it out. Leslie Luckabee, LL Lex Luthor. Eventually, I'm going to have to go through that series, which should be easy to do. It's only 4 seasons. I need a new copy of Season 2, though. Or new to me, at least. But anyway, I would love to go through that show. It's so corny. It'd be fun to go through. It's only 4 seasons. I gotta get through this first. This could take a while anyway. Anyway. So, yeah. And of course, she basically ambushes him at his house But to be fair, the man left his goddamn front door open. Okay, who does that? He's a corporate lawyer type who's boycotting the Talon because he's Lex Luthor. How doesn't Uncharted know who this guy is if he's boycotting the Talon is beyond me. This is right up at the end. She sends him a letter. He reads it and he shows up to have coffee. And that's really all we get from it. But this Rachel Dunleavy story is where we finally get an explanation as to why Jonathan Kent does not like the Luthor, specifically Lionel Luthor, and by proxy his son Lex. We find out that on the day of the meteor shower, which they have to show us everything that we already saw, I'm sitting there like Janos going, yes, we know all of these. Yes, these Scourge got Patio, we know this. We know all of these. And once we finally get to some new footage where they... so their truck got turned over. And they find this other guy who... They play this scene up like it's a horrible death. He's like, hey, Teddy. And he's like, oh, this is terrible. Guy we never met before died. Teddy. Anyway, he takes his truck. They put this ship in the back and they cover it up. And they drive down the road. And, like, she's like, Jonathan. And they show a wide shot. And Jonathan is like, why weren't you looking at the road when you were driving? He's like, he's basically looking at Martha and the kid, whose name they don't know. And it's Lionel Luthor in the middle of the road, and he's all messed up. My son, my son, my son. And I made a comment in the first episode that there was a patch of hair on Lex's head, and I said, do you have to keep shaving that? Well, it turns out it might just be a tuft of hair that was laying on his head, because when they pick him up, he's like completely bald. This is also where we find out that Clark and Lex technically met before he saved Lex's life. Lex wakes up, looks at Clark. Clark rubs his face and he falls back to sleep. And it makes you think, was that like a power? We've never seen that before. No, it just... I don't know what it was. But, they don't know it's Lionel Luthor until he gives them their card. If you have anything, any favor you can do, anything, just let me know. Right? Alright. So, that's like part one of the story. And then we get more to it. Martha tells Clark the story of how they came to adopt him, basically. They brought him home. Little Clark's playing with toys. Little Clark's like maybe 4 or 5 years old, where every iteration of Superman is a baby, but I understand they had to make him a little bit older, you know. But he's playing with toys. When Sheriff Ethan shows up to check on him after the meteor shower, my God, they made him look younger. They had him shave his beard. He's not really a beard, but he had a mustache, and they gave him this hair piece that goes on top, and I'm like, oh my God, that is so fake. And this shows Ethan, I'm like, oh no. Oh no, I don't want to see this. Oh my God, it looks so fake. It looks so fake. But basically, he sees Clark after they tried to hide him, and Clark comes running back down. They see him. So this is our son, Clark. We adopted him. I know you're looking to adopt. Well, you just kind of kept it hush hush, you know. And yeah. So then they had to call Lionel Luthor to call in a favor for the adoption, which is why they goes Minneapolis United Charities, which is also what Lucas was put through. But Chloe said before that Clark was the only one. That's because they didn't decide to retcon that yet. My thought is that maybe she was misguided in thinking that it was done through there, or she would know. I don't know how Chloe only found one person was adopted through that, but there was actually two. Her son Lucas, who she thinks is Clark, but we know it's not. And I have a question here. So they decided to have to do a blood test, which incidentally was suggested by Lex, but he didn't do it on purpose by any means. But they take Clark's blood, and I was expecting to see like him holding kryptonite in his hand or something, or Jonathan pulling kryptonite, put it. How did they pull the blood out without kryptonite around? I want to know. But to make so, Clark and Pete break in and switch the sample with either they draw blood from Pete or he spits in the blood and messes it up or something. I don't know. They don't really explain it. They just say that it was switched. And then, not yet. I think it's after, or maybe not. Well, we finally get the explanation of why. And I forgot about this part. About why he hates the Luthers. So the day that Lionel brought the papers, the Dutch papers, everything is finalized, it's all ready to go. And he goes, maybe you can do a favor for me. And I'm sitting there going, no, Lionel, you're square. He saved Lex. You helped them with the adoption. You're square. Now it seems like Lionel owes him. Although, since Clark saved Lex, I guess they're even again, right? He saved Lex plenty of times. Anyway, it turns out that Jonathan is the reason why Lionel bought the cream corn factory from the Rosses. Pete's dad and uncle. Or brothers. Pete's brothers? His brothers? I don't know how much older they are. Whatever. Pete's family. He taught Jonathan to do it, and then when Jonathan says that he can't do that, he goes, oh, you might want to be careful, and he wants you to find out that's a sham. Are you threatening me? No, I just want a favor. Like, no, this is blackmail or extortion, although I think extortion is for money. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I don't know. So yeah, Jonathan is the reason why the Rosses sold the cream corn factory to Lionel. Right, how Lionel got his greasy hands in the Smallville. So, yeah. So, after the test comes up negative, this woman does not accept it. She shows up, confronts Lionel with her, says, "Oh no, what you did, but you messed with the sample, and you made it so that he's not, it came back negative or whatever." And he's just, of course, he doesn't, accept anything with. Although you could tell from just the way he's acting, he presses his face up against her. He's kind of smooching her on the cheek and everything. There was something that went on between them. Oh, you're so beautiful. Are you still beautiful? And I'm just like, an old lady, but I don't know. Not my type. She's old enough to be my grandmother, okay? I don't go that far. Anyway, so she decides to kidnap Lex, and I laughed at this scene because there's no way it would work this way. So Lex is getting ready to pull out of the driveway in his car, right? She comes walking up, and he's like, "Miss Dunleavy," and she's like, he's like, no. And he gets him a needle. I'm like, is that's your defense, Lex? No. Like, do something else. It's like that scene in. I should be like that scene in Spaceballs. Do something. He's like, no. He does the least amount of anything to get away from that. And of course, he's tied to a chair. She makes the demands to Lionel that not just to admit, like, it could have just been admit that we have a son together. No, specifically she says he has to call a press conference, admit that Clark's Uh, uh, oh, I think the admission of what happened is after this. I think it is. Anyway, admit that Clark's adoption is a sham, and admit that Clark is their son. Clark, thanks to Chloe, they have a little fight, but then they just find at the end, it's like, oh, we need Chloe to help him find the... She has it under the name Lucas Luthor, which you think that would have caught the eye of the person who sold her the house. If she didn't want them to know it was her house, why just a fake name? But Clark so she just so Lionel goes on there and he does not admit to that. Instead, he says that Rachel Dunleavy has kidnapped his son. I will not meet your demands, and I want you to let my son go. So she grabs an axe. I'm like, is she gonna poison? No, she doesn't go Annie Wilkes on his ass. Freaking, I know she technically doesn't. I don't know if she uses an axe. I know that she breaks the dude's feet by putting the brick in between him and then the hammer. But I don't know. She goes nuts, trying to go nuts on him. Clark shows up just in time, but during his self-defense, which he actually has self-defense, he kicks her, pushes her into the wall, but he falls down and hits his head. So of course, Lex gets knocked out, so he can't see Clark do his thing. He jumps in and gets smashed, and he lands on. So I am very confused because it seems like when Clark lands on stuff, he breaks stuff. In some instances, other instances, he'll land on stuff and nothing breaks. I don't understand it. I think only when it fits to serve the narrative, maybe. She sees this and she's like, "Who are you?" He's like, I tried to tell you, I'm not your son." And she freaks out. He's like, "Oh," I'm like, "This woman just tried to kill Lex Luthor. You're gonna give her a hug? What the hell's going on?" Apparently, she's been sent to a mental institution, and we never see her again. So I can imagine she just died in there or something. I don't know. But yeah, this is where we have the wrap ups. Henry Small comes to talk to Lana, and then this is where we get the rest of the story. I messed up. I thought his and Lana's scene was here, but no, his and Lana's scene was earlier after when I mentioned what happened. This is where we get what happened, and then Lex and Lionel have a conversation where Lionel tells Lex that there was a child, but he did give it to a new family, but the child died before his first birthday, which we find out is complete and total bullshit, because he takes out this little locket after Lex left, which I don't know how he'll know, maybe waiting for the feet to whatever, and we find out he's got a lock of Lucas's hair, which is blonde, which doesn't make any sense considering who we find out. The actor they have play Lucas later in the season. And they show Lionel with the little boy, indicating that Lucas is still alive somewhere. So I'm really close to the thing. And that was Lineage. Not bad. Not bad at all. It's better than I thought it was. As soon as I knew that this was the next one, I'm like, oh, this one. But to be fair, it is better than I thought it was. It finally gives you that explanation of what happened. Oh, the Blu-ray player went off. I'll turn back on in a minute. Of what happened between the Luthors and the Kents. And it gives you that explanation of everything that, brings backstory and a connection to something that will happen later on in the season. So, yeah. It formally introduces us to Henry Small, who, like I said, his story is very fast and quick because I think they realized that it wasn't working. So, we'll get to that. But I'm going to give it 3 Superman logos out of 5. I think it's fine for what it is. It's not spectacular. We'll get into some of the better ones coming up. I don't know about the next one. I don't remember too much about it. But, yeah. So, what are your thoughts on this episode? When it comes to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.